Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday 10 with CadChica Sports. I am your host, Sunny Cadwallader, better known in the social and digital media world as CadChica. Tuesday 10 is a conversation with leaders and up-and-comers in the world of sports, from media broadcasting, business marketing, social media, and more. And tonight marks a very special night. It was about this time 1 year ago that I started Tuesday 10. What started out as an original idea of doing a video blog quickly blossomed into a show on Google+. The idea for it was to bring the Twitter connections and relationships I made, take it beyond the 140 character limit into a face-to-face conversation. And the first guest on my show joins me tonight as a co-host. I have joined forces with the hashtag smsportschat. It is one of the best and most popular Twitter chats around. It deals with social media, but not just social media. It deals with it in the sports context. Please welcome in my co-host, Tariq Ahmad. Hey, Tariq.
Hey, Sonny, how you doing?
Good. How are we doing tonight? I am glad you said yes to my proposal to bring the chat over here. Why don't you, before we get started, thank you. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the whole how SM Sports Chat got started?
Sure. So, well, first off, thank you, Sonny, for putting this together. We have a great panel, and we have a lot of good conversation coming up. So, quick introduction. So, I will introduce myself, or unless you know me, as Jay-Z says in public service announcement, allow me to reintroduce myself. So, my name is
Yeah.
Tariq. Of
Here
course,
we
gotta
go.
go Jay. So, all right, my name is Tariq Ahmad, social media business manager for IBM. Also host the SM Sports Chat every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. As Sunny mentioned, the chat deals with social media and sports topics. So it deals with either issues good or bad that happen in sports and social media. We also talk about specific platforms and how teams, leagues, and schools use them. We also talk about just general social media conversation in general on how it relates to sports, as well as any specific promotions and anything that specific teams are doing. So the SM Sports Chat was actually started by Caleb Mezzi in December of 2011. So thankfully, it's now past its 3-year anniversary. And then thankfully, it's just grown from there. You know, obviously with any chat, it starts out slow. You're basically talking to yourself. But, you know, thankfully, the more and more people that have come on, the more people that have joined Twitter, the more people that are interested in sports and social media, it's really helped the chat grow. So I'm very grateful for anyone and everyone who always stops into the chat on a weekly, monthly, even if you stop by once a year and make one tweet, that's very much appreciated. So that is what SM Sports Chat is, Sonny. So that back to you.
Thank you. And that is how I think that's how you and I got connected.
Correct.
And that is how both of us have connected with all of the guests on our panel today. They are some of the best and brightest, and I would highly recommend you get to know them. Let's start off the introductions with Miss Lisa Bregman. Hey, Lisa. Unmute.
Hi, I have to unmute, sorry.
That's okay. That's the joy of technology here on Tuesday 10. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Give everybody a quick bio.
Okay, quick bio. I have spent the past about 10 years or so in the sports industry. Most of that was on the team side with MLS, Chicago Fire, and LA Galaxy. I did digital for the Galaxy from 2010 to 2013, and then went off on my own for a little bit doing kind of a combination of consulting for athletes and brands and small businesses. And then I started with Wasserman Media Group in the digital department about 2.5 months ago. So doing pretty much the exact same thing I was doing, but now with a very awesome digital team and a lot of resources and a lot of really smart people around me. So that's me.
Cool.
And I'm based in LA.
Cool. I'm glad you got to join the show, and we actually got to meet face to face. So thanks for joining the show. Let's
No
move
problem.
Let's move on to Mr. up in my neck of the woods, sort of, about 6-hour drive away. Let's go to Adam. Hey, Adam.
Hey everyone, Adam Navarrete. So probably not too different from most of the other people here, but have been working in marketing and digital media for, gosh, since '06.
Wow.
And from there, always just had an interest in sports and kept an interest in it over the past couple years. Got into the startup realm and made my way over this past year to Ideal Seat, which is based out of Seattle. Mm-hmm. And what I'm doing there is the digital content marketing and just heading that up while keeping a close ear to the ground on digital sports and how it relates to fans.
Excellent. And you and I do have one thing in common. We have a special affinity for the Seattle Mariners. So go Mariners. Sorry, guys. I had to throw that in there. Let's move on down to Neil Horowitz. I hope I'm saying that right. Neil, how are you?
You got it. I'm doing very well. I'm delighted to be here. I'm Neil. You might remember me from such NHL clubs as the Arizona Coyotes and the Anaheim Ducks. I used to do digital and social for them back in the early days and the later days. I've also worked in the ad agency world, in the healthcare space. I've worked in the mobile app space, all in and around sports, going back to my college days. So been in it for a while, looking for a next career gig now, just doing some side consulting. In a little bit of sports mobile apps, a little bit of just small business digital strategy, but been a big part of the social and sports business community in general for a while. Been an active participant and a troll to some degree, but I love the conversation.
No, not you, Neil, not you.
And I'm happy to be here. So let's get it on.
Thanks for joining us. And sorry, Adam, I forgot to thank you as well. Thank you for joining us. And not last but not least, and hopefully we might have one or two more people join us, Jessica Smith. Hey, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Jessica Smith. I'm the social media manager at IMG Live, an experiential marketing company. Before that, I was at the NCAA for 2.5 years and the Atlanta Track Club before that. Huge fan of the social media and sports world, and I keep a blog, socialandsport.com. So glad to be here to learn from you all.
It's great to finally meet you and all of you, and let's just kick this off. We're gonna keep it sports related. I'm gonna throw a softball to you guys with the first question, with a nod to our good friend Tom Buheim, who wrote recently 3 sports and social media trends he hopes will happen in 2015 but won't. We're always talking about what teams, leagues, athletes, sponsors should do. What is one thing that you would like to see them do differently in 2015? And let's start with Neil.
Well, I mean, I've thought a lot about this question, and I think everyone kind of does when they're thinking of reading all those articles about what to expect in 2015 and what teams should be doing and should not be doing. And really, a lot of it is just looking at what teams are doing well and not celebrating every little commonsensical thing. And we celebrate teams when they just almost do things like respond to a fan or actually engage in conversation, or you actually have some replies on your Twitter page, or actually tailor something to a platform instead of just reposting stuff everywhere. So I think that's one thing that stands out to me, is I think you're going to see more teams hopefully start to really tailor stuff to the platform. I think a lot of brands have already started doing that effectively, and teams will start to learn from those bigger brands the more they read Ad Week and Ad Age and whatnot. And I also think one more thing I want to bring up is teams need to be more enablers. A lot of times it's pushing a message at you or pushing something at you or trying to get you to just like what they put up there or comment on it. But I think what you need to think about is how are you helping fans do more of what they want to do. And at the end of the day, they do want to spread the word about what you're doing. They do want to be fans. They do want to involve their friends. And so how are you helping them communicate? Are you giving them a fun thing to share with their friends? Are you giving them fun information to share with their friends? And there's little things can go a long way too. And you don't have to necessarily think about what's in it for me. Think about what's in it for the fan.
That's a great point. I like how you put that, giving the fans the kind of content, the kind of information to share. Adam, what do you think about that, or what are some of your thoughts as to what you'd like to see them do differently?
Yeah, thanks, and great question. What Neil hit on, I think, is pretty accurate as far as tailoring things to not only the platform, though, but to the individuals. One of the main things that I've seen in my experience with going to with friends or family is that I don't come away from a game necessarily remembering the score 2 months down the road or 3 months down the road, but I remember the experience that I had there. And so if we can tie that into social, one thing that I remember is, taking my son to get a photo with a player or getting an autograph, and just having that as a keepsake, so to speak, and a memory that I can share with him down the road and with relatives that didn't go to the game. So having that one-on-one engagement with a team or a school in the digital realm. One example from last year's Super Bowl that the Seahawks did well was they took individual fans' avatars and overlaid a branded Seahawks Super Bowl logo on top of users' avatars, and I thought that was a really great one-on-one engagement that was used.
Jessica, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love the personal approach to fans. I think that's one thing, especially in the sports world. Like, if you're in consumer goods, for instance, you have to maybe work a little bit harder to connect with your fans, but in sports, fans are passionate, and so I think sometimes we almost take for granted how much our fans can be brand ambassadors, and that little personal touch can go a long way. I think there are two big things that I think I would like to see. Last year, when I was kind of reflecting on 2014, one of the things that I wanted to see was more brand personality. And now I think we've almost gone the extreme. The LA Kings are so good at their snark, and we've seen a lot of teams that have kind of caught on to that. And I think one of the things that I'd like to see in sports this year is just a brand voice that's kind of all your own. And a brand voice is hard. Like, it's not necessarily easy to define, but I think there's this pressure necessarily to be funny and snarky, and I think it's about kind of looking in your organization, and if the social media manager leaves and the brand voice is the same, then you've nailed it. So just, I think, creating a brand voice that kind of reflects the team and the organization through and through. Another thing I think that I'd like to see is less kind of fear of missing out. And you actually wrote a really great article, Sunny, the other day about how we're so easy to talk about this team should be doing this on this platform, this team should be doing that. And I think as a social media manager, you kind of have to sit back and think about what are the goals for the team, and what are we looking to accomplish, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing in the industry, but worry about what the organizational goals are and how you can help them achieve it. So I think less FOMO is a big one for me. So
good point. Lisa, what about with your experience with working with the Galaxy and the Fire? What are some of the things that you learned, and maybe there are still some teams, brands, sponsors that are doing probably some of those things that they shouldn't be doing anymore?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think a lot has changed, especially since, if I think back to when I was running stuff for the Fire, that was like 2008 in the beginning of Facebook pages. So obviously
like
a lot of this is evolved.
Eons ago in social media.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, a lot of this has evolved. I think a big thing that I'm starting to see, and I'd like to see more of, teams, I think, understand how to leverage social at this point for driving traffic, and I think that's really a result, driving traffic to web, I should say, and I think that's really a result of, as social has evolved, I've seen a lot of teams kind of convert a PR person, if you will, into the social person. I think, some teams were hiring true digital people to manage web or, some of the more technical aspects, but I still know of a lot of teams that really have social kind of divided out amongst a couple of different people or departments, and you kind of lack a cohesive strategy when that happens. So I think we see, a lot of syndication and a lot of teams using social as, somewhat like a media outlet would, where you're just really syndicating content. But I think what's missing, and I know a couple of people have alluded to this, I think Jess said something and so did Neil, there's a brand component here and a story that all teams have, and it's, you think about the history of every team, and the history of every brand, and the story you're trying to tell each season with each marketing campaign, and I think teams need to think about that and how to weave that in throughout the season. It's a very easy storyline when you're in season and out of season. I mean, you're previewing a game, you're covering a game, you recap a game, and then you kind of do the same thing, day in and day out. Off season, you slightly change your tactic when it comes to the content side, but I think that there's a bigger brand story that you can weave throughout the regular season, and then again during the playoffs. That was kind of the big thing that I tried to do with the Galaxy, especially during the playoffs. We really tried to capitalize on the increased engagement and the excitement from all the fans. I did a lot of crowdsourcing around that time. We usually pulled our playoff hashtag or even the full campaign, and even one year the whole season ticket campaign. We pulled all of that off of Twitter. So it started as me kind of reaching out to some influencers that I knew and really getting their opinions and having them push some ideas out. And we ended up pulling ideas from fans, which made a lot of those campaigns resonate a lot better than they would have if we just made them up ourselves.
Cool.
But I think that's kind of a big thing is, weaving in that brand story while you're still kind of syndicating content. But again, I think there's a resources issue at play here too.
And it's interesting that you bring up brands, because I think Tariq has a question that kind of blurs the lines a little bit. Tariq, let me throw it over to you.
Sure. So thank you, Sonny. So we have obviously the vaunted ROI question, of course, to ask. So Adam, we'll start with you.
No, not the ROI.
We have to. So Adam, we'll start with you on this. So, as this past year, Twitter has created the buy now button on tweets, and there's a buy button on Tumblr as well. You're starting to see a lot more pay apps such as Snapcash and Apple Pay. How important is it for teams and leagues and schools to leverage these features to drive social media ROI? Like, is it absolutely necessary for them to implement these, or do you think it's just more of a novelty and that teams can get away with it but still drive ROI in another manner?
Great question. Right now, I see it definitely as a novelty, because at the end of the day, I think what teams really want to drive are the ticket sales. They want to sell attendance, and in order to do that, I think there's probably some barriers for, unless you're selling just a flat rate ticket that is general admission, which I think is possible, say for colleges. When you get into pro sports and you're talking about sections and different tiers, I think it becomes a bit difficult. But if it's a almost a one-size-fits-all type promotion, then I think there's probably some teeth to that. It could be a limited quantities, special limited edition type thing, and you can sell that out, and with I would think minimal time invested, you could see a return on that. But if we're talking what really matters probably to the teams and leagues, it's ticket sales, and I see that as a harder fit.
Great. No, I completely agree. I think you bring up a really good point, saying that it's more of a novelty at first, where as people may say, no, you have to have this on there, or else you're not going to drive any ticket sales or cheeks in the seats, as they say apparently. So it's definitely good to have that. Neil, I know you're a huge fan of this question, because I know on a lot of the chats you'll bring this up. So, Mr. Horowitz, take it away, sir.
Well, first off, I would echo what Adam had to say about ticket sales being first and foremost on the minds of many teams. It's still always will be, for at least for now, the biggest piece of the revenue pie. And merchandise is a drop in the bucket, which is generally the more off-cited, I guess, case study for using a buy button in social media. I think just to give some general thoughts on it, as far as an actual buy button, is it's not a native action to the platforms yet. I think if you look at something like a Pinterest, there's a little more of an intent to purchase there. Obviously, when you go back to search engines, Google and such, there's a lot more intent behind it. People aren't right now looking in their Facebook newsfeed looking to buy something. It's a little bit lower in the sales funnel, especially for those bigger purchases like cultivating season ticket holders. And what you should be focusing more on is getting them to your site, getting their data, getting them into your system a little bit. That's not to say you cannot generate ROI from social. A lot of times it's you want to be able to show that ROI to your supervisors, to your ownership. that this generated X ticket sales, Y ticket sales, and certainly part of that because you do have a very active community and people who want to help the team on your behalf and spread the word and such, and you have that small component of virality. But at the end of the day, it's going to generate a small amount of sales, but it will generate a lot of awareness and get traffic to your site where you can then, like I said, either capture their data and offer it at the right time in the right place, or serve them ads in the right time at the right place when they are browsing sites where it is more likely that they're going to purchase something at the end of the day. And then the last thing is I would say is that there is becoming a little bit more of acceptance by ownership, by high-level people who are realizing the intangible value of social as well, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be quantified. Just like a TV ad it can't be quantified, really, it's tough to do. A billboard that can't be quantified is tough to do. But they do understand and perceive the importance of it, and that's why you are seeing more social managers become enabled, become a bigger part of the marketing campaigns, and not just a little tip of the iceberg.
No, that's a great insight, Neil. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think you always bring up a really good point about data collection, and I think that's so important as well. You know, you want to make sure that you're targeting the right people, and also, as you mentioned, targeting the right piece of content at the right time to the right people is definitely very critical. So, really solid answer. Appreciate that. Jess, over to you. Give us your 2 cents on ROI in sports, and is it really necessary, or do you think it's more of a novelty for right now?
I come from sort of the brand side of things, so for me, you know, especially I've never run social for a team, and the NCAA wasn't necessarily ticket sales driven. So I think I kind of what Neil was hitting to. There's a lot of intangible benefits to social media that go way beyond ticket sales, and so I think. For me, the idea of the call to action to buy now, it's a novelty. I think we're moving in the direction where consumers are eventually going to be able to do everything from the platforms themselves. We're not there yet. People are so immersed in their phones, but right now it definitely is more a novelty. But the ROI on social isn't so. It's not. It depends on all organizational goals. It can be customer service related. It can be brand related. It can be it can be telling the story from a college athletics point of view. It can be recruiting. So I think it's hard to sit down and say this is the ROI of social media because there's a lot of different benefits to it. So
that's a great point, Jess, and I completely agree because you're right. It's not a straight line ROI, like you said. There's a lot of gray area, or like you said, you know, maybe your storytelling is ROI, or maybe the way you present something is ROI in itself. So it may not be definitely dollars and cents, but it's definitely something worth noting.
Yep.
Lisa, I know that we've definitely talked about this in previous tweets. I know we talked about this with the Fire and with the Galaxy and what you've done. So what's your take on ROI, and then any experience that you have with ROI with the MLS teams that you can share? Obviously, that's not proprietary information. Is highly appreciated.
Sure. No, I mean, I think a lot of what needs to be said has been said between both what Neil and Jess have touched on. I think when you're talking about ROI, there is no blanket right or wrong answer here, and that's something that a lot of people really still struggle with even when they're asking me questions from a consulting standpoint, because there's no, you know, what's the best time to do this, or what should my goals be for that. It's very much dependent on, you know, where you're at, you know, team to team, market to market, and really even within a season where you're at. I mean, we found that our goals would change throughout the season, sometimes based on, you know, changes to different platforms, or, you know, a player signing, or, you know, different factors affect what's going on throughout a year. You can't really set one goal and hope that you can just stick with it. And that's actually a really big thing to be able to communicate, you know, in any organization that you're working for. And I think something that a lot of higher-ups really struggle with when you're setting those kind of beginning of year goals and trying to deliver ROI. From a social standpoint, it's very challenging to say, yes, I'm going to hit this goal. You know, I'm going to set this on January 1st, and that's going to be the same goal by December 31st. I don't think there was ever a year that I could say that the goal that I set out with was the goal that I finished with. You know, Facebook tweaks an algorithm in September, and all of a sudden you go from gaining 5,000 fans a week to 2,500 fans a week. So if you decide to set goals around growing your audience, you're going to have to change that. So, you know, ROI and KPIs and all of that needs to really be a fluid thing, I think, and it's something that you need to make sure you're communicating as a social media manager, especially. And I will say that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. You know, some of the organizations I've worked for, while they may be progressive in some places, were not in others, and that's, you know, a big challenge for a social or digital media manager when you're trying to explain what you do and trying to justify it and show ROI, but then try to explain, well, I know I said that this was what our goal was and this is what we're going to do, but now that has to change. So as the person that's in that role for anybody watching, I think the biggest takeaway that I've had over the course of the past 7 years or whatever working for teams especially was really educating the people above me on why your goals need to change, and then just to justify why you're changing them. Explaining why an algorithm changes and how that's going to affect what your end of year goal is.
Sure. No, that's a really great point, Lisa. Like you said, what you did or what your plan was at the beginning of the year wasn't the same plan at the end of the year or even mid-season as well. So it's definitely key because, as we all know, that's the way social moves. It's very fluid. Like, even in the sports chat, something we talked about 2 years ago in the chat or on social in general isn't even mentioned today because that's just how social goes. Like, it's very fluid and it's changing all the time. So great insight from everyone on question 2. Much appreciated. I'm going to turn it back over to Sunny for the next question.
Thanks, everyone. So far, thank you for joining in. If you are watching this on the Google Plus events page, comment tracker, I apologize, is not working. I am reading your comments. I'm just not able to bring them in. Or if you're tweeting about the show using the hashtag Tuesday10CCS or hashtag smsportschat, we're not able to bring those in later, but we do appreciate the interaction and you watching the show. This is Tuesday 10 with CadChica Sports, Year 2, season premiere. The next question, it's kind of going to be geared towards Neil, Lisa, and Jessica because it's dealing a little more with college sports. And I know the three of you are aware of it. And Adam and I talked before the show, and he was okay with it, with not being included in this question. We're just about at the end of the college football season, one of my favorite times of the year, of course. Go Ducks. What has stood out to you guys, to you three, from either sponsors or some of the schools or even bowl games? We love Belk Bowl and Russell Athletic Bowl. What has stood out to you guys, maybe not just on Twitter, but some of the other social media platforms as well? I'm going to start with you, Jessica.
I think so. It goes back, actually, Lisa talked about this a little bit earlier and what you wanted to see. One of the things that I was really impressed with, it was early on in the season, was the hype videos that some of the schools were producing. I think the schools are moving beyond just the typical on-the-field action and are telling more of that emotional story. So why are fans so passionate about the school? What are the traditions? And Clemson had a really great one. Georgia's videos are really, really, really stellar. Florida's videos are great. South Carolina had a campaign they launched called Here, and they're actually carrying it over to AllSport. So I think I love the move of thinking of a new season as a campaign and how you can carry that over into video, into hashtags, and the language that you use. I think it's so important, and it kind of tells that different story from season to season. The on-the-field action can get a little redundant, and so how do you weave that storyline of this team and the new season into kind of the content? Another thing that I really like is the teams, and you see this across all sports, I think not just college athletics now, but people are thinking in content as like content series, so we're seeing schools produce really great score graphics and maybe really great infographics, and the content is branded, maybe not all of the content, but they've branded certain series, and I think it makes the content look sharp, it stands out from the noise, and so I'm a big fan of that trend.
We do like those that think outside the box, don't we?
Yes.
Lisa, let's offer a little bit of, hear from you. What are your thoughts, especially now that you're with you're outside of a team mode, but you're still in the digital marketing area?
So admittedly, I follow college a lot less than Jessica does. I would say she's probably the pro in that space of this group. I've been following a little bit, and admittedly, I follow Northwestern probably more than anything just because I'm a Wildcat.
I knew that.
They do great stuff in that space, so that's at least a good team to follow. I started paying attention a little bit more, I guess, towards the bowl games recently, and I think the one thing I was really surprised about, especially not having followed for a lot of the year, was sort of the level of professionalism, actually, that a lot of the schools have at this point. I feel like the last time I really, checked in on the college scene, I felt like it was a little bit amateur. And I was really impressed with, especially like Oregon and FSU, watching that bowl game. A lot of teams I'm seeing are, outsourcing for graphics and infographics and PR campaigns, and they're really stepping it up. And you can see that there's more resources and a lot more value being put into behind social, and that was, I think, my biggest takeaway. But I'm loving seeing colleges really step up the game right now, and I think that for one, I need to start following a lot more of them because I was so impressed with it. But that's been my biggest thing, I think.
Yes, you do. I mean, the Big Ten, hey, they're in the championship game. Everybody left them for dead earlier in the season, so you need to pay attention there, Lisa.
I know, but it's Ohio State, and there's a moral dilemma with not being an Ohio State alum and cheering for Ohio State. And my boyfriend is an was from Ohio, and is one of those Ohio State fans that didn't go there, and we battle about this on a daily basis. But I will support the Big Ten for the championship game as much as it pains me.
If I, as an Arizona State gal, can cheer for the Ducks, you can cheer for the Buckeyes. So I know, I feel your pain on that, but Pac-12 all the way, baby. Neil.
That's fair.
Neil, let's hear from you on what your observations have been throughout maybe not just the bowl season, but throughout the college football season.
Well, I'll speak to a little bit of both, the bowl season and the season itself. Good answers from Lisa and Jessica. I know Jessica's are always on top of everything going on in the college sports world, among others. But yeah, I think from the bowl season, especially right now, everyone's been talking, of course, about the AllState Mayhem, and I think that really speaks to what Jessica was talking about earlier, with a brand narrative taking place more, telling a story throughout the game, taking advantage of the fact that you do have the deep attention of viewers for that 3-4 hour time period, and continuing to get those engaged impressions throughout the game, so that by the end of the game, you have that ingrained in your memory, and now everyone is talking about Mayhem and AllState, and you're not going to be able to say that word Mayhem without thinking of AllState in the future. Another one I like is I think what I'm seeing both from myself as well as other users and friends and just hearing about is a lot of the shareable content that, because people are so engaged and emotionally invested in their college teams, it makes it that much more shareable. So that when initially, if I were to tell a friend, hey, have you seen the Snapchat story, live story from today's college games, and they're like, oh, I don't even know what Snapchat stories are. But when I say, hey, you can see your school and people from your school celebrating, they're like, oh, I want to check that out. And it's that much more. It gets people to take that extra step to adapt to technology because they are missing out on stuff that's close to their heart. And the last thing I would say is, going back to the shareable content piece, is the fun ways that brands find to activate when they are with bowls. Some are very much so better at it than others. And I think AllState was one that we talked about. But Outback does a great job every year, whether it's their Bloomin' Onion guy walking around, or what I really love is the shareable little factoids, like how many pounds of steak was eaten last night. And that's something that myself, or someone who does follow Twitter closely, can tell their parents or their friends, people from any generation, hey, did you guess how many pounds of potatoes the University of Oklahoma team ate last night or whatever? And it's that little shareable information that all of a sudden something you're sharing from Twitter is going word of mouth, and how did you learn that information? And it really creates that conversation even more, and that's what it's designed for right now, because ticket sales are a small piece of the pie for the bowl games.
I know for me personally, I enjoy the bowl. I'm college football. I grew up going to college football games, so it's right in my wheelhouse. And I remember just seeing, oh wait, there's the rodeo bowl. There's the rodeo bowl where oh, never mind. This isn't about me. Let's move on to the next question. Tariq?
All right, so Lisa actually just had a question pinged to her, which we'll actually address it right now. And Lisa, what was the question again? It was, what were the best social media and sports engagement campaigns for last year?
Yeah, so at Andy Perelman was asking, we
Lisa?
talked about some of the best campaigns for 2015, or things we want to see in 2015, and there was a question about what do we all think were some of the best campaigns or just individual engagements for 2014.
I've got one.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think, well, and actually, Lisa, you can probably speak to this a lot better than I can, but U.S. soccer during the World Cup, I think, was by far one of my favorites. And I loved the digital jerseys, but the favorite thing that I think they did was their influencer program. The outreach they had with not only sports teams, but organizations across the U.S. They had the whole United States kind of rallying, on social media for their team. So I think the detail that they put into that influencer program and the thought they put behind the World Cup to drum up the excitement was something we haven't seen in sports. And so I think probably one of my favorite campaigns for this year was what U.S. Soccer did around the World Cup. Just so much attention to detail and just really, really thought through. So.
I'm trying to rack my brain right now.
That's okay. Neil, did you want to touch on that? Unmute, Neil. There we go. Oh, unmute. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of one that pops in my head as well. I mean, there were a lot of little short-term campaigns that you like to see that there's thought behind it and strategy behind it, and it's not just let's see how many likes we can get or see how many photo entries we can get. But I think I think Jessica made a great point with the personalized jerseys. I think that was going back to what Adam was talking about with the value of that one-to-one engagement, as well as creating those shareable moments and shareable stories and everything as well. I mean, I think you look through across the board. I think MLB has done a great job across the board with trying to bring in that social media gaming a little bit to it, and trying to get who's going to talk more and bringing in some of the data and visualizing the teams against each other, especially this year with the Royals and some of the smaller market teams coming up in the game. So I always like what they do. I think you're seeing a lot more creativeness with creativity with visual graphics, whether it's not just necessarily infographics, but little fun items that are unique to the team and unique to something that only fans will get. And I mean, I'm trying to think of people off the top of my head that are creating those kinds of things, but whether it's birthday cards or things to send to your loved ones for the holidays, and personalizing things like that. And that's where it goes back to that personalization as well as being what Jessica was speaking to, is being able to have almost a badge on your profile, on your Twitter handle, and Twibbins are part of that as well. But just you're getting more people to show their identification, show their loyalty, and I think the more teams that are finding ways to do that are winning right now.
Adam, I know you have some thoughts on this. From a baseball perspective.
Right. So prior to last season, we all know Derek Jeter announced his retirement, and so one thing that was weaved throughout the season was the respect hashtag, and then I think Gatorade did an amazing job with the commercial that they produced with that as well, and I believe the first time the Gatorade logo with the lightning bolt has ever changed was to put in the 2 and the to honor Jeter, and I thought that was handled really well because you had a whole organization, a whole not just one team, the Yankees, honoring Jeter, but it was a whole fan base of people that watched Jeter throughout the country. He touched more fans than just those in New York. So I thought that was a great display and use of social to get a whole country behind that.
I'll throw it in there. So I mean, thinking back, I'm always terrible on the spot with these best of things. I always usually need to sit a bit. But a couple that are coming to mind, I would say from a brand side, as it kind of relates to sports, I think UnderArmour really had such an incredible breakout year for them. Going from kind of a brand that you never really thought of in the digital space to being really up there with some of the stuff that Nike and Adidas have done in the past. I think all of their campaigns was it I'm going to mess up the hashtag, which is probably bad, but their whole campaign around women with like Misty Copeland and that kind of content that they created there, the microsite that they have for all their women, I think that they did a really incredible job. I also think that the Canadian Olympic team, I forgot about this one until just now when I was Google, the WeAreWinter hashtag around the Sochi Games I thought was brilliant. They really, I think, kind of captured the spirit of being Canadian with that one, and got the entire country to really rally around Canada during the Olympics for that. That was probably one of my favorites.
Yes, we could probably go on for hours and hours just talking about the Olympics alone and all the different things we saw. Tinder was huge at the Olympics as well, and the Atlanta Hawks will be using Tinder tomorrow at their game. But we do want to kind of wrap this up. But there are a couple of questions on the Google Plus event page that we're not going to be able to get to. One of them we might be able, if you can make it a short answer. What major company would you like to see more active in terms of social media and college sports, or maybe even pro sports? I'm going to toss it to you, Jessica. Unmute. There you go.
From a sponsor standpoint?
That's just what the question was. I would assume probably from a sponsor standpoint. Let's take it from that vein. Is there one?
I think it depends. I mean, I think the schools are so different. I think the demographics of each school are so different. The fan base is so different that it probably depends on the school. College athletics is also a little bit a different ballgame. I think Neil and I actually got I think it was with Neil, a conversation about this with Nike Graphics. Just because of student athlete likeness, it's a lot harder for sponsors. They can't promote the student athletes, and so sponsors in college athletics space have to get super creative from a creative standpoint. So I don't know if that I have one brand that necessarily stands out to me that I think needs to get involved in college athletics, because it really depends on the school and even the conference, because the demographics are so different depending on what school you're talking about.
Neil, would you agree with that?
Oh, I mean, I would definitely agree that you have to look at the market you're in, the type of consumer you're speaking to, and even the part of the country you're in. But I would say, just to give my own input on the question as well, is as much as I love the Nikes, the Gatorades, the UnderArmours of the world, I think it's sort of bringing this back to a little bit of what we talked about earlier in this hangout, is I like to see more personality from those brands. I think a lot of them stay away from it because they are so worried about staying on brand that every tweet almost sounds like a fortune cookie that ends with their branded hashtag. And that's fine, and it speaks to that aspirational brands that the Nikes are going for, that your performance brands are going for, whether it's Gatorade or whatever it may be. But I think that I'd like to, when I look at those brands' pages, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I'd like to see more responsiveness, more celebrating what fans are posting, more fun, and more enjoying the fruits of your labor, and not always so much, like I said, sort of speaking like a sage or some greater omniscient voice, I guess, in that case.
Lisa, you got something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if the question is necessarily, what sponsor do we want to see, but I think the bigger thing here is, it's kind of to what Neil said, is seeing them better activate within the partnerships that they have. I'm doing a lot more in that space now, and even with the Galaxy, I think you see a lot of times, you're still seeing sponsors, while they're affiliated with a team, the contracts are, fill in blank social media post, or, you get 2 tweets or things like that. I'd love to see teams and their sponsorship departments really working more hand in hand and coming up with concepts together, whether that be a content franchise or whether that be, a bigger campaign or a contest or a promotion, something where you can kind of more organically integrate a sponsor, but something that they're going to get behind from a bigger standpoint. I know, not to call them out really, but, Pepsi is someone that's really involved in a lot of sports in the U.S., and I really don't see them getting very behind a lot of that. So to me, I kind of question, why are you spending all this money and getting involved if you're not going to really align yourself with all of these teams and these players that you're behind? some of the good stuff that I've seen. You know, I used to try to do stuff with our sponsors and come up with ideas and then sell them in on it. So if it was, whether that was Herbalife and, you know, we did a design your own third kit with the Galaxy, and it was Herbalife and Adidas kind of partnering together. I think the big thing is really, as a social media manager, as a digital manager, you know, coming up with the ideas that you know are going to be great for your fan base, and then working with the sponsorship team to activate your sponsors or sell in new ones. If you have an idea that you think would be a great fit, you know, let's say you want to do a podcast, you want to do like a coffee, you know, kind of like a Monday, you know, coffee chat thing, and you want to sell in a coffee sponsor, you know, come up with the idea and then go to a sponsorship team and have them help you sell it. So I don't know if I would say that there is a brand that should be working more in sports so much as I think there needs to be better communication and collaboration among those departments within teams.
I think that's a really good point, Lisa. I think too often, especially from the social side, we just tend to slap a logo on our name attached to it and call it a day, and it's not a win for the sponsor, and it's also not a win for the team. The Indianapolis Colts have had really good sponsored content throughout the season, and I'm kind of on the fence about sponsored content, but they found a way to integrate it into their everyday content that is seamless and doesn't quite sell. I think they did a really, really good job with it. I think experiential marketing too is something that isn't necessarily used a lot of in sports. We saw someone remind me, who did the vending machine this year?
Red Sox.
Red Sox, yeah.
But I think
the social media one.
Yeah, when you talk about bringing a brand to life in the space, I think experiential marketing is something that could be huge in sports that isn't necessarily utilized in venue. So let's go beyond throwing a hashtag and photos up on the board and figure out how we can bring, you know, a brand and social to life within the venue. So,
Adam.
Yes. So I've seen a bit more of this past season. But I think a really great fit is the transportation like Uber and Lyft. And I've seen it within Major League Baseball that they've partnered with those. But in any sporting event, I think a pain point for any fan is the transportation, whether it's the parking or the traffic before or after. I think Uber has a great way to integrate digital, and so to have those sort of partnerships would make it really easy. You know, if you're in downtown Seattle and getting to a Mariners game or leaving, you know, you can call that driver, you know, before the end of the last inning and try to get out of there in a timely manner. And I can just imagine, you know, when the Seahawks are playing and it's, you know, a packed house.
Always.
You know, you're just sitting there, or you're walking blocks, but still paying, you know, X amount, which isn't that fun. So I think there's a great way to tie in that sort of digital, just to the arriving and the leaving.
Well, great insights from everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Tuesday 10 with CadChica Sports. Yes, we did have other questions, but there was so much great information coming from the panelists, and we want to be respectful of their time. So we are going to close it out. We're going to go. Sorry, unfortunately, we had some tech issues with Mark J. Burns, and he wasn't unable to we were unable to connect back with him on the show. But I want to make sure every one of you here in the audience, or if you're listening later on to this podcast, that you connect with every one of our panelists here. Let's go down the row and make sure you guys let them know where people can connect with you, either a website or in social media. And let's start with you, Neil.
Well, first off, let me thank everyone again for tuning in and or watching and joining us. It's really privileged to be a part of the panel. I mean, I feel like I'm starstruck here looking at some of you guys. I've enjoyed talking to you guys, and you can find me on Twitter. I'm at NJH287. My website as well, I have a podcast that you can find information about there that's bi-weekly that talks about social and digital and sports. I talk to various guests who work in the social and digital world in sports. Also, I'm active on LinkedIn, so feel free to find me on there. and I always like having conversations and meeting people, whether it's online or offline. So I invite you to find me there and listen to the podcast. I like feedback.
Thank you, Neil, for joining us. Please make sure you guys are connecting with Neil. Lisa, let's hear where people can find you.
I am on Twitter at Lisa M. Bregman, so first name, last name with an M in the middle, and pretty much the same thing on every other platform. So I was going for branding consistency there. So pick a platform and you can probably find me with that same username.
We'll just call you the Brandmaster L. Okay? Brandmaster
I just got lucky that I had a unique enough last name I could pull it off.
Mine's
not pull that off.
Poor Jessica's in the opposite boat.
Jessica, where can people connect with you at?
You can find me on Twitter at WarJustEagle. I have a branding problem because my name is so generic. So, and then my website is socialandsport.com. So.
And be sure, definitely check out her website. She's been pumping out some great content on sports, on social media, from a branding and sponsorship and just a unique perspective. Adam, let's close it out with you before we get to my co-host. Adam, where can people connect with you?
Yes, so just like Lisa, pretty unique name, last name. So Adam Navarrete, it's pretty much across the board. Connect with me on Twitter at Adam Navarrete, adamnavarrete.com, and on LinkedIn as well.
And I have to apologize. I think I knew some people with the similar spelling when I was growing up to your last name, and I think I just did the Spanish way to pronounce it of Navarrete. So my
You're
apologies.
Right on. No, you're right on. I just usually say Navarrete because no one else typically pronounces it that way. So
it's the whole rolling of the R's thing, I guess. I know. Thank you, every one of you guys, every one of our panelists. Can you understand why I wanted these young whippersnappers? And yes, they are young because every one of them is younger than me. But I learned a lot from them tonight. I learned a lot from them on a daily basis, and especially during the SM Sports Chat. Tariq, tell everybody where they can connect with you and when the next SM Sports Chat is.
The next SM Sports Chat is Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, as that is the regular day and time. You can find me on Twitter, Tariq_Ahmad, so first name _ last name, and then you can find me on LinkedIn, Tariq Ahmad1, and you can reach out to me on Facebook as well if you want to be Facebook friends and real friends as well. So all good. But mainly Twitter and LinkedIn will be the spot, and that's it.
And all I'm thinking is an old song, Why Can't We Be Friends? Why Can't We Be Friends? Okay, sorry, my musical interlude for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Google+, for joining in on Twitter. It has been a pleasure. Join me next week for the second show of 2015 when I will be joined by Debbie Davis from 3D Communications. Debbie is a social media strategist who is a longtime volunteer in Colorado, working with various ski events, and she will be working next month as a volunteer with the World Alpine Ski Championships. So she joins me on the show next week. Connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, at CadChica, my website, CadChicaSports.com, dealing with sports and social media or social media from a fan perspective. And LinkedIn, Sunny Cadwallader, and always, of course, right here on Google+. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.